No, he's come up with a book of trash. That's all that is a book of trash. Lies, lies, and more lies, and lies on top of
The
lies.
Queen of Soul didn't dish out grudges easily, but when she did, the world paid attention. Imagine the scenario: the wings of a full opera house, the tension thick in the air. Aretha Franklin waited in her dressing room, quiet, queenly, immovable, with a composure that chilled all those around her. She shut her makeup box and uttered words that would resound throughout the corridors of show business. "If he sings tonight, I walk." Such was the authority of Aretha. She did not require a platform to dominate a room. Only a glance, a phrase, a silence. When she gave her blessing, it was holy. When she denied it, the silence boomed louder than any applause. Respect wasn't merely her hymn, it was her decree. And when she believed that decree was violated, the vendetta smoldered forever. This is the tale of the 7 greatest artists Aretha Franklin battled, feuded with, or simply despised. Each feud says less about pettiness and more about the unyielding code in which she lived her life, protected her legacy, and defended her throne. 1. Beyonce, the crown dispute. In 2008, a single phrase ignited one of music's most surprising feuds. It wasn't hissed in the wings, nor disseminated by tabloid rumor. It was broadcast live, in front of millions on the Grammy Awards. Beyonce, looking glamorous and in charge, approached the microphone to introduce the legend Tina Turner. With a big, sunny smile, she announced, "Tina, the Queen." The crowd erupted in applause, but somewhere in the nation, another queen sat in silence. Aretha Franklin. To most, Beyonce's words sounded like a harmless compliment. But to Aretha, who had spent more than 4 decades defending and defining her crown as the Queen of Soul, the introduction felt like a direct challenge. That title wasn't a nickname. It was a hard-earned legacy carved through gospel roots, civil rights anthems, and unmatched vocal mastery. To watch it discarded so lightly for another artist, even one as highly respected as Tina Turner, wasn't thoughtless. It was disrespect. Soon, Aretha put out a statement. She didn't call out Beyonce by name, but it was understood. She called the comment a cheap shot and a lapse in respect. The words hit like thunder. Fans argued on and on. Was this pride from a diva or something more? Those who knew Aretha best said it was the latter. She wasn't protecting her ego. She was protecting history. In private, she was even more biting. Friends recall her dismissing Beyonce as a talented girl who forgot to curtsy. To Aretha, the problem wasn't talent. Beyonce had that in spades. It was recognition. She had battled to make room in an industry that worked tirelessly to silence black women. And now, here was a younger artist, one she had shaped, rewriting the history without a nod of respect. Beyonce never clapped back. Publicly, she credited Aretha as the benchmark of vocal excellence. In interviews, she referred to her as the voice that raised the bar for everyone else. When Aretha died in 2018, Beyonce and Jay-Z paid tribute to her memory at a performance, referring to her as the reason we all sing. Aretha never let the slight be forgotten. After 2008, she avoided events Beyonce headlined, refused to share a bill, and declined invitations that might place their names side by side. The rivalry was never settled. To the end, Aretha stood firm. To her, respect wasn't merely a song lyric. It was a code. When once broken, it was seldom fixed. Beyonce still pays tribute to her legacy, but Aretha's off-the-record words still linger. Crowns aren't borrowed. They're earned. 2. Luther Vandross, The Studio Wars. If Aretha was fire, Luther Vandross was glass. She thought soul was spirit. You open up the Holy Ghost and spill it raw. Vandross was an architect, in comparison. Each note buffed, each harmony calculated. When Clive Davis paired them in 1982 for her comeback record Jump to It, it was a dream team. Fire and finesse. Legacy and state-of-the-art. The Queen of Soul and the Prince of Precision. Initially, the sessions radiated promise. But in no time, sparks transformed into smoke. Luther demanded phrasing adjustments, tightened runs, and precise diction. For Aretha, it was like wearing shackles. She sang from the belly, not from a book. There was a breaking point one late evening. In frustration, Luther barked, "Cut the oversinging. Be silent." Aretha stood still, and then, with cold intensity, she rose to her feet, met him glare for glare, and declared, "Nobody tells the Queen how to reign." She grasped her coat and left. The album was finally completed and turned out to be a success. But every song was accompanied by tension, fights, and walkouts. In her memoir From These Roots, Aretha candidly stated, "All of a sudden, Luther wanted to tell me how to sing, when it was me he learned so much from. If he wanted it sung that way, he should have sung it himself." Luther spoke for his side as well, painting Aretha as distant and demanding. There was, however, begrudging respect hidden in the fight. "We're both Aries," Aretha once explained, "too opinionated, but we respect each other." Their beef smoldered across several projects. On her 1983 album, Get It Right, fights were so intense she walked out in the middle of a song. Studio insiders likened them to an arranged couple battling for dominance. And yet, despite it all, they returned. They created hits. They even became close friends once more. When Vandross passed away in 2005, Aretha openly grieved him, labeling him one of the greatest singers and songwriters of our time. Their rivalry never went away, but it finally ended in appreciation. Respect came home. 3. Ray Charles, the improviser. Aretha Franklin established her career on domination and perfection. Every note thought out, every phrase honed. Ray Charles lived for anarchy transformed into genius. He warped songs until they barely looked like the original. Soul to him was danger. When they were paired for a television duet in the mid-1970s, fans were ready for fireworks. Rehearsals were no problem. They joked, told anecdotes, and sang easily together. But when the cameras started, Charles deviated, stretching out bridges, adding ornaments, twisting rhythms. It seemed spontaneous to onlookers. It was sabotage to Aretha. Off mic, Charles chuckled to producers, "She's terrific but not quick-witted." That one sentence cut deeper than any musical conflict. Aretha had made her fortune on control and composure in the face of pressure. To be ridiculed by someone she respected was inexcusable. After that day, she never would give him a stage to share. Ever. Not on tour, not in private rehearsals. Ray Charles, always the mastermind, never spoke of it. Friends reported that he didn't even realize he'd left an open wound behind. But Aretha never forgot. The tension between them became legendary, an icy silence present whenever they shared a space. It wasn't just about one flubbed show for her. It was about betrayal, and she nursed that wound for life. For Keith Richards, the dismissal. If there's anything that fueled Aretha Franklin more than competition, it was disregard. Legacy to her was holy. So when Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards offhandedly stated in a 2007 interview, "Soul died" with Otis Redding. Aretha's still around, but it's not the same. It wasn't arrogant. It was erasure. For decades of artistry shrugged away, Aretha shot back with poise and venom. Some people think loud guitars are depth. Bless his heart. The line was memorable, but in private she seethed. "He sat in the front row. While I built this," she vented. "He knows better." Richards never explained, never apologized. That was Keith, gritting, irresponsible, wild. To Aretha, his silence made the insult greater. She barred reference to the Stones from her life. Turned down offers to co-headline. Spurned tributes to him. He was a ghost. Legacy, she said to a friend, is blood. It's sacrifice. I won't let anyone write mine away. The feud never resolved. Richards might have felt he was making a throwaway comment. But to Aretha, it was betrayal from a fellow artist who understood her value. Once you lost her respect, there was no turning back. 5. Eminem, the omission. Aretha did not simply originate in Detroit. She was Detroit. Her voice emerged from its churches and nightclubs, the city's beat. She groomed younger artists, gave back tirelessly, and took Detroit to the world. So when Eminem became the city's face for a new generation in the 2000s, Aretha demanded recognition. A nod, a name drop, a sample. But it never happened. Song to song, Eminem name-checked legends, rock gods, even his own Detroit compatriots like Kid Rock. But not Aretha. To fans who weren't paying attention, it seemed like coincidence. To Aretha, it was erasure. Over a private dinner, she shook her head. He knows who I am. He just chose not to care. Pressed in interviews, she had only one word for his music: noise. That was her assessment. Silence. No cooperation. No tribute. No forgiveness. Even when she died in 2018, Eminem remained silent. To Aretha, that silence was deafening. Respect wasn't a choice. And if you didn't give it, she refused to give it back. 6. Dionne Warwick, The Funeral Dagger. Aretha was weakened by disease by 2017. She had cut back on appearances, picking her battles. Then came the spark that set off a decades-long feud. At Whitney Houston's funeral in 2012, Dionne Warwick, Whitney's cousin and fellow icon, said, "Aretha was supposed to be here, but she's not." She never said why. Aretha had been too sick and bereaved to come. To the world, it was a footnote. To Aretha, it was a dagger. She remained quiet for 5 years. Then, in 2017, she let loose a 5-page letter via the Associated Press. It was searing, calling Warwick a liar and using grief as a means to manipulate gossip. She concluded coldly, Dionne knows what she did. Their feud traced back to the 1960s when Aretha covered a #1 version of Warwick's hit, I Say a Little Prayer. Some took it as respect, others as superiority. Over the decades, their lives intertwined under Clive Davis's umbrella, and Whitney Houston became a generational singer linked to Warwick's lineage. Tensions never completely dissipated. Warwick's reaction to the 2017 letter was relaxed and dismissive. She's feisty. That's Aretha. But for Aretha, it was over. We've never been friends, she conceded, and I don't think Dionne has ever liked me. The feud never recovered. As Aretha died, Warwick sent condolences, but the frosty distance was still imprinted in history. Two legends tied by heritage, torn apart by distrust. 7. Billy Joel, the rehearsal that ended everything. There is probably no name more astonishing to find on Aretha's list than Billy Joel. Both were giants. Both respected musical tradition. On paper, they were meant to get along. In the early 2000s, a co-headlining concert was offered the Queen of Soul and the Piano Man. Aretha consented to rehearsal. She respected Joel's composing and anticipated deference. Instead, she encountered easy condescension. His wit, engaging in front of an audience, came off as patronizing in rehearsal. At intermission, he allegedly laughed. Come on, loosen up, take a shot of whiskey, and lighten the mood. Aretha, who never drank, was outraged. Tact and dignity were her weapons, not booze. She closed her book, gathered her belongings, and departed. No yelling, only quiet, and in the opinion of witnesses, the slamming shut of a piano top that spoke volumes. Later she confided, "He plays piano like a poet, but talks like a fool." The concert was canceled quietly. No statement, no explanation. Billy Joel's name thereafter dropped out of her sphere. No duets, no tributes, no shared stages. Joel never spoke about it publicly. He complimented her voice in interviews, but the silence persisted. To Aretha, legacies weren't constructed with charm. They were constructed with reverence. And when Joel crossed that boundary, even lightly, she shut the door forever. The code of respect. Ultimately, Aretha Franklin's grievances weren't ego or vindictiveness. They were principled. Respect mattered. That was a bond once broken that could never be restored. From Beyonce to Billy Joel, each conflict tells the same tale, a woman who fought just as hard as anyone to write her name in history, and who would not let anyone, however large, wipe it clean. She bore those scars as hard as she bore her crown. Aretha Franklin was the Queen of Soul. And queens don't forget.